Tonight, after dinner, you're going to want something sweet. Maybe it's a biscuit. Maybe it's a soft drink. Maybe it's just a few squares of chocolate. You won't think twice about it. But for 99.9% of human history, that craving, if you even had it, went almost entirely unsatisfied. Sugar was seasonal, rare, and impossible to store. Your ancestors might taste honey a handful of times a year. That was it. And here's what's extraordinary. They almost never got diabetes. Not because they were medically advanced. Not because they exercised religiously. Not because they had willpower we've somehow lost. Because the world they were built for didn't have what our world has now. Today, 589 million people on this planet have diabetes. That is 1 in every 9 adults. By 2050, scientists project that number will hit 853 million. The disease is now responsible for 1 death every 9 seconds and costs the global health system over $1 trillion every single year. So what happened? Did we get weaker? Did our genetics change? The answer is far stranger than that, because the real cause isn't a disease at all. It's a 15-million-year-old survival mechanism, one that kept your ancestors alive through ice ages and famines that is now, in a world of unlimited cheap calories, running constantly and silently destroying you. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why, and why stopping it is so much harder than anyone wants to admit. Tell me the one sugary food you can never say no to down in the comments. Let's start with insulin, because insulin is the reason any of this was possible. Insulin is a hormone your pancreas releases every time you eat carbohydrates. Its job is simple. It unlocks your cells so they can absorb glucose from the blood and use it as energy. Without insulin, glucose builds up in your bloodstream. Your cells starve even while surrounded by fuel. That is diabetes, a failure of this one small protein to do its job. We treat insulin like a medical detail, a number on a blood test. But insulin is ancient. It is older than fish. Versions of it exist in insects, in worms, in creatures that have been on this planet for 500 million years. And for almost all of that time, it worked perfectly. The question is not why insulin fails. The question is why our world is now so different from the one insulin was built for, that the system is breaking down everywhere all at once. To answer that, you have to go back, way back. Picture a human living 50,000 years ago. They wake before dawn. To eat today, they have to find food hunt, fish, dig for roots, or go without. Their diet is what scientists now call a hunter-gatherer diet. Lean meat, fish, wild vegetables, seasonal fruit, fibrous tubers, and whatever nuts they could crack open. No flour, no oil, no refined sugar, no dairy, no processed anything. When researchers study modern communities still living this way, groups in the Amazon, in the Kalahari Desert, in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, they find something that should stop us cold. Obesity is almost absent. Type 2 diabetes is essentially non-existent. Their causes of death are infections, injuries, and violence, not metabolic disease. In the 1980s, a group of researchers took westernized Aboriginal Australians who had already developed type 2 diabetes and put them back on a traditional hunter-gatherer diet for just 7 weeks. 7 weeks. Their blood sugar dropped. Their triglycerides dropped. Their blood pressure fell. Several showed signs of reversing the disease entirely. Their ancient biology was still there, waiting. It had not forgotten. So the question becomes, what exactly was that biology built for? And why did it work so perfectly for 300,000 years only to start failing in the last 200? In 1962, a geneticist named James Neal proposed one of the most important and uncomfortable ideas in the history of medicine. He called it the thrifty gene hypothesis. Neal had spent years studying indigenous peoples like the Yanomami of the Amazon communities with the same genetic raw material as any modern population, but almost entirely free of diabetes. He noticed the contrast and asked the obvious question: if the genes were the same, why were the outcomes so different? His answer was this: throughout most of human prehistory, food was unreliable. Good harvests followed by lean winters. Successful hunts followed by weeks of nothing. In that world, the people who survived were the ones whose bodies were ruthlessly efficient at storing energy. When food was available, they converted it to fat fast. When food was scarce, that fat kept them alive. These were the thrifty genes. And they spread through the population not because they caused disease, but because they prevented starvation. The genius of Neal's insight is also its cruelty. Those same genes, the ones that saved your ancestors from famine, are now, in a world where the famine never comes, storing fat you never burn, elevating blood sugar you never clear. pushing your pancreas to produce more and more insulin until one day it simply cannot keep up. The gene did not change. The world did. But Neil's hypothesis had a problem. Researchers searched for decades and couldn't find the specific thrifty gene. It seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. The genetic signature of diabetes didn't cluster in the neat way you'd expect from a single survival adaptation. Then, in the 2000s and 2010s, a series of studies pointed towards something nobody had expected. The thrifty gene wasn't a gene humans gained. It was a gene our ancestors lost. 15 million years ago, a mutation disabled a gene called uricase in the ancestors of all modern apes. Most mammals still have a functioning version of this gene. It breaks down a substance called uric acid, a byproduct that builds up whenever you metabolize fructose, the sugar found in fruit. When you eat fruit and your body processes its fructose, uric acid spikes in your blood. In most animals, uricase clears it quickly. In you and in every human who has ever lived, that spike lingers. And that lingering uric acid does something very specific. It activates what researchers now call the survival switch. The survival switch is a cellular program that your body runs when it detects an energy crisis is coming. It tells your liver to convert incoming fuel to fat fast. It reduces your sensitivity to insulin. So glucose stays available in your bloodstream rather than being immediately used. It makes you hungrier. It tells you to move less. It is, in every way, a biological emergency protocol designed to get you through a coming winter. For an ancient ape in a European forest 15 million years ago, eating ripe fruit as summer ended and temperatures dropped, this was not a flaw. This was the difference between life and death. Eat the fruit, spike the uric acid, flip the switch, store the fat, survive the winter. The mutation spread. And every human alive today carries it. Now think about what you drank today. If it had any sweetness at all, a soft drink, a fruit juice, an energy drink, a flavored coffee, it almost certainly contained fructose, high fructose corn syrup, table sugar, which is half fructose. And unlike the fructose in a piece of whole fruit which comes bundled with fiber that slows its absorption, the fructose in processed food and drinks hits your system in a concentrated wave. Your ancient survival switch does not know the difference between a ripe fig and a can of cola. It detects fructose. It produces uric acid. It flips on, and it tells your body, winter is coming. Store everything. But winter is not coming. Not for you. The calories keep arriving. The switch never gets the signal to turn off. And so it runs quietly, constantly, for years, reducing your insulin sensitivity millimeter by millimeter, filling your liver with fat, nudging your blood sugar a little higher each year until the day a doctor tells you that you have pre-diabetes, or diabetes, and you wonder how it happens so gradually you never even noticed. The average American now consumes over 23 teaspoons of added sugar per day. The World Health Organization recommends no more than 6. The switch that was designed to flip on a few weeks a year, when wild fruit was ripe, is now running on a modern diet every hour of every day. And this is not even the whole story. Here's something researchers discovered only recently that most people still haven't heard. When modern humans left Africa between 60 and 80,000 years ago, they encountered Neanderthals in Europe and the Middle East. They interbred. And from those encounters, some humans inherited a specific gene variant carried in Neanderthal DNA that increases the risk of type 2 diabetes. This helped explain something that had puzzled scientists for decades: why Hispanic and Latino populations in the Americas carry almost twice the diabetes risk of other groups. The answer traces back through tens of thousands of years of migration from the populations that crossed out of Asia into the Americas, carrying that ancient Neanderthal variant with them. A genetic encounter between two species 60,000 years ago is still determining who gets sick today. But the deeper point is this: the human genome has not meaningfully changed since before the agricultural revolution, roughly 10,000 years ago. We are, genetically, hunter-gatherers. And the agricultural revolution was only the beginning of the mismatch. The real rupture came in the last 200 years, and then, steeply, in the last 50. We have ancient hardware running a program it was never designed for. And the program is getting more demanding every year. Global diabetes prevalence doubled from 7% to 14% of adults between 1990 and 2022. Not crept up. Doubled in 32 years. Before the year 2000, the International Diabetes Federation did not even publish global statistics the disease was not considered a global emergency. When they published their first atlas in 2000, they counted 151 million people with diabetes worldwide. By 2024, that number was 589 million. In 24 years, it nearly quadrupled. Almost 450 million of those people, 60% of everyone with diabetes, remain untreated. Most of them live in low and middle-income countries where Western food arrived before healthcare did, where the sugar got there first. This is not a rich world problem anymore. It is not an old person problem. The epidemic is now growing fastest in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. It is appearing in children. It is appearing in people who are not overweight. Because the switch can be flipped by fructose alone, independent of total calorie intake in bodies that have never been obese. We built a world that our biology was never designed for. And the bill is coming due everywhere, all at once. And here is the part that should change how you feel about all of this. Insulin resistance is not your body failing. The survival switch is not a defect. The thrifty gene is not a punishment for some evolutionary mistake. Every single one of these mechanisms saved the lives of your ancestors. Repeatedly for millions of years. The ape that lost its uricase gene 15 million years ago survived a climate catastrophe that wiped out the apes that kept theirs. The humans who carried thrifty genes made it through the famines that killed the others. They crossed ice ages and deserts and reached every corner of the planet because their bodies were magnificent at doing the one thing that mattered most, staying alive when there was nothing to eat. You are descended from survivors. Every one of them. Every single ancestor in your entire line, going back to the first cell that ever divided in ancient water, survived long enough to reproduce. The biology inside you is not weak. It is spectacularly, ruthlessly optimized for a world that no longer exists. We did not get sick because we got weaker. We got sick because we got so good at abundance that our survival machinery doesn't know what to do with it. For 300,000 years, your ancestors ate food they had to find or grow or kill. They moved constantly, not because someone told them exercise was healthy, but because movement was survival. Their bodies ran the survival switch a few weeks a year, when wild fruit was ripe, and then powered it down when winter came and the fructose was gone. And diabetes, the disease now killing someone every 9 seconds, was so rare it barely left a trace in the archaeological record. Then, in the span of a few generations, we engineered an environment with no winters, no lean seasons, no gaps between feasts. We put fructose into bread, into sauces, into baby food, into things that don't even taste sweet. We built chairs for our jobs and cars for our errands and removed almost every reason the human body ever had to move. We took the survival switch that was designed to flip on for a season, and we left it running permanently. And then we were surprised when the engine burned out. On the frontier of research, scientists are now testing whether blocking the uric acid spike, the first step in the switch, can prevent the cascade entirely. Early trials are promising. Gene editing may one day restore what that ancient ape mutation took away. The biology is being mapped. Solutions are coming. They are coming slowly. And the food environment is getting faster. So tonight, when you reach for something sweet after dinner, and you probably will, because your ancient brain is working exactly as designed, maybe just notice it. Notice the switch trying to flip. Notice the 15-million-year-old program running in a 21st century world. Your body is not broken. It is magnificently, heartbreakingly out of place. And most of us never even knew why.